Hello everybody and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol character spotlight, and today we are taking a look at Daredevil, the original one in this game. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into things here. So coming in with his defensive stats here, he's coming in with a 4-3-3 defensive line and 5 stamina on the front side. For a 4 threat, that's definitely on the squishier side, but we'll see he does have some tech to kind of make up for that. He is a size 2 and a long mover on a small base, so, he's pretty fast, but nothing too insane. Going into his attack profiles here, he's got 3 attacks here. The first one is a basic strike attack. This is going to be a range 2, 5 dice physical attack. It's going to gain you power based on the damage dealt, and it's got that wild stun in there as well after the attack is resolved, which is, a pretty solid condition to be throwing out. Obviously, it's after the attack is resolved, so there are cases where it's better, but still, really nice to just kind of have that tacked onto your builder there. Next, he has the Baton Hook attack. This is a range 4, 4 dice physical attack. This attack ignores line of sight and stealth, so you can kind of get around a lot of really solid defensive tech with this. And the defending character does not benefit from cover as well, so again, even more stuff you can kind of just ignore, which is really good. He's also got the hit pull trigger on this. After the attack is resolved, if the target character is size 2 or less, it can be pushed towards this character's small. And yeah, this is really good. You can use this early game to kind of reel in models towards the rest of your team and have them kind of gang up on them. You can use it to reel in models like stealth models and things like that. Pull them in close so the rest of your team will be able to shoot them, and, he'll be able to use his other attacks on them and stuff like that as well. So yeah, just in general, this is a really nice kind of utility attack on his card. Or sometimes you just need to be able to attack at range 4, and it works for that as well. Last, we have his Spender, Devil's Deliverance. This is going to be an Area 2 6 dice attack that's going to cost you 5 power. However, you're going to add 1 die to the attack to each of your attack rolls for each non-dazed enemy character within range 2 of him when you choose the attack. So if when you first declare this attack, you are surrounded by, let's say, 4 enemy characters, this is going to be a 10 dice area attack, which is pretty good for 5 power. It also has the additional thing here of after each attack is resolved, the target character is pushed away from this character short. That's an any size push. So yeah, it's a great way of kind of being like, okay, well, this is the end of the turn, and this point is very much mine because every single model you have is being pushed away and probably taking a bunch of damage. So yeah, really solid spender in the right situation. Obviously works best where there's going to be lots of enemies clumped up, stuff like your E maps and things like that. A little bit less effective on stuff like your more spread out Bs and D maps, those sorts of things. So something to kind of keep in mind with that, but still really good in most cases, or, even if not, he's got 2 other solid attacks on his thing here, so you can kind of just stick to those if you need to. We're going to pass over the leadership for now. We will come back to it, but for now we're going to focus on the card itself. Going into his first superpower here, which is going to be a reactive Man Without Fear. This is a 2 cost. After an attack targeting this character is resolved, this character may use this superpower. It advances towards the attacker small, and then if the attacker is within range 2, he may make a strike attack targeting it. So yeah, he's got a crackback, and it comes with an aggressive. Really solid there, and obviously the strike attack, having the wild stun and stuff like that in the middle of their turn can really throw off some plans. So yeah, really solid attack there, just kind of coming out of a free reactive thing. So that's cool. He's got some disincentives. Yeah, I'm wording good today. Disincentives to attack him. So yeah, solid little bit of kind of defensive slash, crackback style tech there. Then he has Radar Sense, which is his main defensive tech here. When defending against physical or energy attacks, this character adds blanks in its defense roll to its total successes. So martial artist at unlimited range. And yeah, turns out that makes your 4-3 suddenly feel a lot better. 4 dice counting blanks is really good, turns out, and 3 dice counting blanks is totally fine. So yeah, this is just really good, and if they don't damage you, you still get to use Man Without Fear here because it doesn't care about you having taken damage, so they could totally whiff and then end up taking more damage than they were doing into you very reasonably if they're throwing, relatively average physical attacks at you. So yeah, it's a really solid piece of defensive tech that works quite nicely with his Man Without Fear there. Lastly, he's got Wall Crawler because that's useful. So yeah, being a long mover, that definitely helps him kind of not care about anything in the way, but there's not really too much to talk about with it. Before we move on to his leadership, we are going to look real quickly at the flip side. where we'll notice that Man Without Fear's superpower has morphed into a now active superpower. This one's going to be costing you 2 power. It says you perform an attack with a cost of 0. After the attack is resolved, if the attack roll contained any skull results, you suffer 1 damage. This can only be used once per turn. So basically, he can attack 3 times, but he potentially takes some damage for it. And yeah, turns out being able to attack a 3rd time is really, really good. Or, just being able to move attack sort of thing is also really, really good. You can use your builder for this, so that's obviously great for kind of being able to build some power, make back that 2 that you spent, maybe even work towards something else. Alternatively, you could use the baton hook to kind of be like, okay, well, start of my turn, I'm going to baton hook, I'm going to pull you in, and now I get to double tap you with strikes, or maybe even, throw some spenders out or something like that. So yeah, really, really nice superpower to have. You do risk taking some damage if you roll a skull, definitely something to kind of keep in mind, but thankfully he also gets an extra point of stamina on this side of his card, so a little bit more durable there as well, and again, counting blanks on defense definitely helps out with that there too. Of course, you don't have the crackback anymore, so your opponent will be a little bit less scared of attacking you, but trade-offs where they are, and being able to make a 3rd attack is still definitely something where your opponent may want to kind of consider how much power you have and try to keep that in check. So yeah, still really, really solid. Lastly, for his card here, we're going to take a look at the Marvel Knights leadership for the affiliation Defenders. Once per turn, an allied character may reroll a number of its attack dice equal to the number of enemy characters within range 2 of itself. And this is a really, really good leadership. I mean, turns out offensive rerolls are good. And yeah, he makes great use of these. I mean, with his pull, he can pull people in to kind of get more models for more rerolls, which is also pretty great. But just on top of that, most of his things are kind of range 2 based. He's got that area 2 spender, and he can decide which one he wants to use it on. Typically you'll get more rerolls if you use it early because you're pushing everyone away, so something to kind of keep in mind with that. But it also just works for a strike, giving him a little bit of extra consistency there, because I mean, 5 dice builders are fine, but 5 dice builders with rerolls are actually really, really good. So yeah, it's great for that. It is a once per turn, but the other kind of nice thing about it is you are on a different turn when it's your opponent's turn. So when you're using your crackback, you get to use your rerolls there as well, and that feels really good as well. So yeah, again, this leadership just works really, really well with Daredevil himself, and is just a really, really good leadership. So yeah, it's pretty great for him. Going down to affiliations here, he is a member of 2 affiliations, of course, Defenders, where he is a leader, and Web Warriors. We'll go ahead and start things out by looking at Defenders here, and yeah, I mean, his leadership is fantastic here. Lots of these models operate primarily at range 2, and a lot of these models have access to movement abilities to kind of put themselves in prime positions where they have as many models as possible within range 2 to be able to kind of take extra advantage of those extra rerolls. Stuff like Hulk, obviously, with his Gamma Leap being able to position nicely for that. You've even got Ancient One with a similar sort of ability, Iron Fist placing off of attacks, Ghost Rider long moving, and I mean, that's just the first handful I saw. Amazing Spider-Man, web swinging, so many characters that with some really, really solid movement abilities to kind of line up for peak positions for it. And obviously, everyone appreciates rerolls, but a lot of models that really, really do appreciate those rerolls. Models like Hulk, who don't really have offensive rerolls on his own, so giving him a little bit of extra dice consistency can be huge. Models like Luke Cage, that double wild stagger, being able to throw some extra rerolls in there to try and get it is absolutely massive. Or when you're going for the spender, again, that wild throw is really important. So yeah, tons of models just in the first half of the roster here. Shang-Chi, of course, giving Shang-Chi already an amazing model, a couple of extra rerolls, really, really good. Valkyrie takes great advantage of this, having a charge, getting to Warrior of Legend after you do the rerolls, so super consistency there. Wolverine, same idea with Best at What I Do. So yeah, you've got some really, really good synergies with the leadership there. So yeah, I mean, obviously he plays it really, really well in the affiliation. But then looking at the other leader and running him under Strange, he doesn't necessarily dislike Strange's leadership. He definitely prefers his own. He's going to get a little bit more mileage out of it in most matchups, but being able to switch up attack types can be really, really useful, especially if you're against a super physical heavy team. So being able to do that from Strange's leadership is definitely a nice thing. And if you're kind of playing on a map where you're not really expecting to get too much mileage out of Daredevil's leadership, you know, you're playing like a D map or something like that, which definitely isn't his favorite thing, but you want him there for like the long move or something like that, then yeah, I mean, he certainly can make use of Strange's leadership reasonably well. And in addition to that, he can make use of the extra dice that Strange can throw out. Being able to count blanks and then throwing extra dice makes him absurdly bulky. So yeah, definitely really, really nice. And then healing him up too and everything like that. So yeah, there's definitely some solid synergies there with Doctor Strange as well. But generally speaking, he does prefer his own leadership there. For his other affiliation, he is also a member of the Web Warriors here. And yeah, he plays pretty well with them as well. They are pretty tight on their 4 threat slots, especially since they like their 3s a lot, so they kind of spam out the 3 slot, and they really only end up leaving enough space for 1 or 2 4s in their roster. But if you can include him, he certainly won't feel bad there. He can keep up with them reasonably well with his long move, and he does get a fair bit of mileage out of Miles' leadership here. Being able to reroll a defensive die, including skull results, is really, really nice when you count blanks. So yeah, he definitely appreciates the things that they're doing, even though he doesn't really play to their playstyle. They have a lot more of a kind of control-y, objective-focused playstyle, and he just kind of wants to punch things. So if you're going for a more aggressive Web Warriors, he's definitely worth considering, but in your kind of standard roster, unfortunately, he just kind of has a different game plan. But he does work pretty well with their models, and all webbed up into a Devil's Deliverance is rude. So yeah, that can be pretty fun. Starting this at 8 dice before even counting models is kind of insane. So yeah, if you can get that off, it's definitely worth trying to do if you're trying to play a more kind of aggressive attrition-y Web Warriors. But unfortunately, otherwise he's often beat by models like Spider-Woman or Agent Venom or even Gwenom in the affiliation. Oh, and of course Scarlet Spider now as well. So yeah, they've got tons of options for 4s, and unfortunately, he doesn't really play the same style as them, but still, really good choice. As far as other affiliations go, there's kind of a couple main things that Daredevil's kind of looking for if you're thinking about splashing him. I'll be upfront. I don't think he's necessarily the best splash in the world. He doesn't bring too much to the table that you don't get out of other models, but he does bring some really cool things. I mean, he does have that really, really good spender, and if you can line up some great area attacks with that spender, it can make or break games. So he definitely has some things you can use him for if you have a game plan with him, but he's not really just like a splash anywhere, do whatever you want model. You definitely have to know what you're doing with him and you know why he's in the list. So with that said, I think there's a couple places that kind of allow him to do what he does best better than others. The first thing that I'm kind of thinking of for him is ways of delivering him, because one of the things he is missing on his own kit is mobility. I mean, he's got the long move, which is great. He can get where he wants relatively quickly, but he doesn't have any form of action compression. So he's going to get there and then make one attack. And if that attack doesn't do much, then he's kind of just sitting there. So you want to kind of be able to increase A, his ability to get into the fight, and B, his consistency a little bit. So for ability to get into the fight, actually the first place I think of for specifically Daredevil is New Mutants. I think their leadership is really, really cool, and I can't actually pull it up here because it's not a character leadership, it's a card. But for those unfamiliar, because it is a newer leadership, when one of the New Mutants, or when any character is attacked, allied character is attacked by an enemy, another allied character that's within range 3 of the targeted character can, I believe they have to pay a power, and they teleport over after the attack is resolved. So you can kind of use it to just you know, bring your other models in to back up the attacked character, and I think this works really well for Daredevil. He gets to kind of pop into the fight here and, you know, be ready to go with his area or whatever else he has to do. And usually he's not hurting too bad for power because he doesn't really have all that much to spend it on. So he doesn't really mind paying that extra 1 to kind of bump into the middle of the fight there. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one for him. They also have access to Cable, who can kind of do the same dice buffing thing we were talking about with Doctor Strange in Defenders. So that works pretty well for him as well. Outside of that, you know, there are a couple other kind of mobility-focused-ish ones, like Midnight Suns, for example, but I find him being on the small base, the bump just isn't quite enough with Midnight Suns to really get him where he wants to be a lot of the time. If you combine it with, like, the baton hook, pull some people in, it's not bad, and Midnight Suns and Defenders do have a lot of crossover in their rosters, so going dual-affiliated with them, you know, you're certainly not hurting yourself by including Blade in that roster and occasionally considering him on the Midnight Suns team. But I think if you're playing purely Midnight Suns, it's probably not the direction to go, just because small bases don't get as much mileage out of the bump, and specifically small bases with his range bands. I don't think it works quite as well for them as it does for some other models. With the kind of main mobility ones out of the way, the other thing that is kind of good for him is more dice consistency. I mean, it's why he likes his own leadership so much. Dice consistency, both offensively and defensively, are really, really good for him. Stuff like Black Panther Wakanda or Invincible Iron Man Shield, where you can just pay a power to reroll a die. He's going to appreciate that on both attack and defense. You know, counting blanks obviously on defense makes it really, really good, and on attack, giving him a little bit of extra consistency and just being able to do damage is really nice for him. So yeah, he doesn't have a crazy amount to spend his power on too often, other than of course, you know, spenders, and those are relatively expensive. But he definitely doesn't mind paying for the rerolls, because for him, they're, you know, on attack it's 50%, on defense it's better than 50% that he's going to succeed. So he's usually getting his money back for it. So yeah, it feels pretty good with him to give him those types of leaderships, or really any kind of reroll focused leaderships, or just kind of support models in general. You know, obviously, I feel like I say this in all of these character spotlights, but anyone with a winging it token feels better, and he's definitely no exception there. If you could run him under Shadowland Daredevil, he'd be really interesting under Shadowland Daredevil. Being able to do that area attack and have a reroll on all of them would be really, really cool. Unfortunately, not quite how it works, but still really, really solid. But yeah, I think in general, he's just kind of a, you know, solid beater model. But I think if you're splashing him, the big thing you want to keep in mind is less so kind of what your like affiliation specifically is doing for him, but more so you want to kind of have a plan to deliver him, get him where he wants to be, and then make sure that that big attack goes off and doesn't you know, doesn't just totally whiff, because that can definitely make or break games. And you know, there's tons of models, like specific one-off models, that can really help with that delivery system. Stuff like Lockjaw, if you're playing in Inhumans, really, really good for that. Strange Supreme, I mean, he's in Defenders, I think. But also just like, you know, maybe you want to try him in Convocation or something like that. Could be kind of interesting. So yeah, there's definitely some options for different ways you can kind of deliver him. And then yeah, from there, give him stuff like reroll bubbles. You want to be somewhat careful, because like Namor and Zemo, their reroll bubbles are range 2, so if you're using the area spender, you're going to end up hurting them. So maybe focus more on models like Shuri, for example, who can kind of sit back, give him rerolls from a distance. And I once again kind of point towards Wakanda for that, where, you know, you got Black Panther leadership, which is also really, really good for him. So yeah, I think those are kind of the main things you're looking at for him, rather than kind of specific affiliations. We did mention a couple still, but I think for him, you just really want to have a game plan with him, and you know what you're doing. You know, probably if you're splashing him, you probably don't want him for like the D shapes and the really spread out maps. You really want him for those like tight fights in the middle, where you're expecting to be able to get a bunch of people grouped up. Those E's, the I's, even C's work really, really well for Daredevil. So yeah, he's got lots of options going for him, but definitely not a just kind of plug and play model. If you just kind of throw them into an affiliation, yeah, sometimes dice will work out for you, but you definitely want to have something, you know, you're planning to do going into the game. But yeah, that just about sums up my thoughts on Mr. Murdoch here. I do really enjoy playing this model. I think he's a ton of fun. His new leadership, or newer leadership, it's really not new anymore, for Defenders is super fun, and probably one of my favorite just kind of like casual fun leaderships to play. So I definitely really enjoy throwing Daredevil down from time to time. And yeah, I mean, actually after making this video, I'm kind of thinking about some places I could kind of splash him as just like a unexpected bomb, because I think he could be kind of interesting in that sort of situation, where your opponent kind of sees him as like, what are you doing with him? And then he just comes out of nowhere with that massive area attack and swings a game. Because I've definitely had that happen to me, and I've definitely done that with him. So yeah, he's definitely kind of defined by that spender that he's got. And of course, you know, everything, you know, he's got the bulk, he's got the crackback, he's got a lot of kind of cool, more unique things going on for him. So Yeah, definitely a really, really cool model. But I think that's just about going to sum up my thoughts for Daredevil here. Definitely let me know what you guys think down below, where your guys' favorite places to play Mr. Murdoch are. Any synergies or anything like that you guys think I missed, feel free to point them out down below. Can't wait to read the comments and be like, oh my god, how didn't I think of that? So, yeah, definitely let me know. But that's going to do it for me. So until next time, have a great day, everybody. Peace.